Well, welcome into the episode of Patrick Jones Baseball. All right, on this week's episode, we have Tyler Rubasky. Tyler is the head baseball coach at Anderson University. It's his first year as the head baseball coach there. He previously was a recruiting coordinator, and he has other stops at other colleges that he talks about in his own experience as a college baseball coach. Really cool stuff, really insightful because we get into Division III baseball. Tyler also has experience at Division II baseball, and so he talks about some of the similarities and differences, and then also just how he goes about his own program, and then what to do and what not to do if you're a potential recruit at Anderson University. Thanks again, and hope you enjoy this episode. All right, we now welcome on to the podcast Tyler Rubasky. Tyler, thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I know this is your first year as head coach at Anderson, but before we kind of dive into what it's like transitioning to become a head coach and what some of those duties are, kind of give everyone a little bit of your own personal background from a coaching standpoint, playing standpoint. Like, were you a player growing up that you always thought, hey, if playing doesn't work out, I'd want to be a coach? I kind of give everyone a rundown on your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm from Hazleton, Pennsylvania, which is, I tell everybody who has no feel for where anything in Pennsylvania that I'm between Scranton, where The Office is filmed, and Hershey, where the chocolate is made. I'm right in the middle there. So grew up there, played travel and high school baseball, played Legion baseball. Legion is still kind of the king in Pennsylvania, so I grew up playing Legion. Then I went out to college. I went to Waynesburg University, played there for 4 years, which is about an hour south of Pittsburgh. And honestly, to your question about coaching, I never really thought I was going to be a coach. Obviously I love the game and love the guys that I am fortunate enough to coach, but I wanted to be an athletic trainer. My first 2 years of college, athletic training major, and then get into my junior year and battled some injuries and fighting for, the starting spot there. And my junior year clinical rotation was going to be off site, and I was going to miss pretty much my entire fall season. And it's probably bad to say because I preach academics all the time to our guys, but I decided I was there to play the baseball and not play school. So I changed my major and got a degree in exercise science and pretty much finished up and was like, well, now what am I going to do? I found a niche little master's program down at WVU and coaching and sport education. Went down there and was like, hey, I want to stay around the game. I've always had a passion for teaching, but again, back to the whole playing baseball and not playing school thing. I couldn't find a subject that I was super passionate about, but passionate about baseball and, have the ability to teach the game and coach, and just felt like this was a good career path. So from there, I was very fortunate. We actually just played them this weekend for the first time as a head coach. I played Franklin College, which was my first college coaching job. I moved out to Indiana the day after Christmas in 2018. I'm kind of on a whim and got hired mid-year by Lance Marshall. Spent 2 years there, and then the other assistant that he hired, we got hired at the same time, took a head job at Davis and Elkins College, D2 in West Virginia, and convinced me to go with him. So I moved there, coached there for 2 years. Things kind of fell apart there. He had just got married, and his wife had a really good opportunity to go be the head coach of Kenyon College's softball program. And they decided it was best for their family to kind of follow her career path there. So he got out. I ended up at Trine University for 2 years. And then my predecessor here, Matt Baird, convinced me to come down and be his assistant. And next year, the year after that, he took the Indiana Wesleyan job, and I'm fortunate enough to be sitting in this seat.
That's great. I feel like we could take this podcast in a lot of different directions, but I think one of the things that I think would be interesting and helpful for people before we get into your guys' season and kind of, your vision for your program is, it sounds like you've been at some programs that are NAI D3. Give people some context on, like, what is it like coaching at those levels?
I feel like I'm a D3 guy through and through, and I could be off base here when I say this, but I think Division III college baseball is the purest form of baseball out there right now. Right? I spent 2 years at a D2 school, and the money plays a factor, right? Like, I don't know what it's like at the Power 4 schools right now with all the NIL money, but even at the the D2 level, we've got guys who are on 95% scholarship, and the year after that, maybe they had a good year, maybe they didn't, and all of a sudden they're trying to bargain for more money. And a lot of people don't understand, like the discount rates and all the factors that go into it. And are you a fully funded program? Do you have NIL money, things like that? And at the D3 level, I don't have to worry about that, right? I go out, I try and find some guys that are high academic students that we're going to package really well, that love baseball, love our program. I'm fortunate to be at a Christian university where I get to, kind of live out my faith and find guys that just want to grow spiritually in their walk, and find guys, I guess this is probably a you know, catchphrase right now, but the right fit. And, that's ultimately what we're trying to do. I'm not saying I won't ever end up, somewhere down the road at another D2 or D1 program or NAI program or anything like that. But I love the D3 model. I love the school, and I love my guys.
So at the D2 level, it sounds like are you saying that there's that NIL plays a role even at D?
I think it does. I mean, it didn't at the school that I was at, but I'm sure, your top tier D2 programs, right? Like Tampa comes to mind, right? I'm
Mhm.
sure that they're, a perennial powerhouse, and I'm sure that they've got some NIL money down there. But
Interesting. Well, let's talk a little bit more about your vision for your program, where you guys are at. What's the transition been like? Because last year you were the recruiting coordinator. This year you've transitioned to becoming the head coach. Before we started recording, I was asking you kind of about the transition. You were telling me about, well, it's been maybe a little bit different than you thought, because it's not as much baseball stuff as maybe you had liked. So there's pros and cons, but kind of give everybody a glimpse on, all right, now you're a head coach. Everyone wants to be the head coach until maybe they don't.
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that I don't. I love the role. I love, again, I mean, I'll probably say it another 30 times, but I love my guys, and that's ultimately what this is all about for me, building the relationships with my players. And at the end of the day, I want this to be, a life program. I don't want them to come in for 4 years and it be super transactional. Like, I want it to be transformational, and help them be what, show them what it's like to be a good person, who loves God, and I'm not married, I don't have kids yet, but I hope to, I aspire for those things. So, like, I want them to be able to see what it's like to just be a good example of a good husband, a good father, a good person, and just ultimately, help them through life. I want the phone call when they get the promotion, or when they're struggling, or when they're getting married, they have the first kid. So the transition for me has been pretty, it was pretty seamless. Back to your point of being the recruiting coordinator, I brought the class in that's here now as freshmen, the 26 or the incoming 20 sevens, I guess. It's my class as well. So been able to develop good relationships with those guys, coach the guys that are still in the program now for a year. So they're, I still consider them my guys, even though I didn't bring them in. And the baseball is the same, right? The recruiting is the same, a couple philosophy things here and there. Maybe we run our cuts a little differently than before. Maybe we try and play a little different style than before. But at the end of the day, like, the hardest transition, and I know I mentioned this before we were recording, but it's been the lack of time with my guys that maybe I took for granted. It's the early work that, maybe I missed because I'm in a meeting, or it's the hitting groups because we've got an impromptu admissions meeting that I have to go to and I miss some hitting groups. So it's the time spent with those guys, and it's not always baseball related. Like, I love nothing more than getting out to the field for early work, and I've got a great staff that I trust implicitly, and they do their do what they need to do. And, there's opportunities there for me during early work to just kind of walk around and talk to guys, hang out and, catch up on life, catch up on classes. What you got going on? What's your internship program look like? Do you have a job lined up yet? Things like that. How's your girlfriend? Like, just different things going on. And I enjoy those times. And with the transition, I feel like there's been less of that, which is what I'm struggling with the most, I would say.
From like a day-to-day standpoint, what's the difference in season, typical day for you, maybe just game day as a head coach versus as an assistant coach? Is it similar? Is it different? What's kind of the typical game day scenario when you were assistant as a recruiting coordinator versus now as the head guy?
I like to keep it as consistent as possible. I've been, again, my staff has been great. They handle a bunch of things that, take some things off of my plate, and I can just focus on, the baseball aspect of it. And game days for me are obviously the days that everybody looks forward to, but it gives, kind of gives us the opportunity to, I don't got to be on the phone with recruits. I don't have to worry about, a meeting that I need to be in, or, our travel agent getting a hold of me or anything like that. Like, game days are just, my getaway day per se. It's, eat breakfast as a team and enjoy those moments off the field, and then get to the field and prepare. So I'm fortunate for my staff and the support staff that I have that, the SID takes care of a lot of things. Our football coaches run our concession stand. So as long as the money bag is in there and it's stocked, I don't have to ever worry about that. We've got a really good group of parents who help out coordinating, in between game meals. So I don't even necessarily have to worry about that a lot of the times.
How do you deal with, and maybe you haven't dealt with it yet, maybe you have as an assistant coach and not yet as a head coach, playing time. Players not happy with playing time. Do you have is it an open door policy? I've had coaches actually say, like, we don't even have an open door policy. Like, you can't come in anytime because you should already know where you stand. What's kind of if you've even had to deal with that yet? I'm sure you will at some point, but like, I was just curious to hear your thoughts on playing time, players not being happy, that type of a thing.
We just try and be as transparent as possible. Give you a rundown at the end of the fall, like, here's where you stand, here's where we see you, here's what, your development program looks like. And then in season, just try and explain the reasoning behind the moves that we make, right?
Mm.
Not just make a move to make a move. Like, obviously coaches always have a reason behind what they do, and just be transparent about that. And if a player doesn't like it, then we can have a follow up conversation. But, I feel like it's helped them understand, like, this is, we're not just doing this because we don't like you. We're doing it because this is what we see. Whether it's hey, we're gonna pinch hit this guy here for you, and it's not because necessarily you're having a bad day, but we like the matchup. Or, you know give a guy an opportunity and he plays into it, and all of a sudden it's like, well, we're not out on you. We're going to keep working and keep developing. We're just going to play it out because he got an opportunity and he made the most of it. So yeah, definitely open door policy. I joke with the guys all the time. So when I was the assistant, I had a little cubicle out in, like, our athletic department, like our athletic offices. So I was just like out in the lobby, just in a little cubicle, and guys would walk up and just sit down and my back's to them, and they'd sit there for a couple minutes. I have no idea they were there, but it seemed like they were up all the time. And I joke all the time. I'm like, what, you guys don't want to come into the office anymore? Like, my door is always open. And they're like, oh, no, like, it's not you. It's not that. It's nothing like that. So no, guys pop up all the time, and I appreciate that. And, sometimes it has nothing to do with baseball, but again, just being as transparent as possible.
Parents, are you tired of spending money going from showcase to camp, not even knowing if a coach is even looking for your son's position or even knows his name? One of the reasons that I started my college baseball recruiting service is to help guide families throughout the recruiting process, so you're not having to waste money and time going from showcase or camp to camp. If you're interested in hearing more about how I can help your son, head to patrickjonesbaseball.com and fill out the form. That's patrickjonesbaseball.com. Fill out the form right on the homepage, and I'll be in touch. All right, back to the podcast. Do you remember that as a player yourself? And maybe you didn't deal with it a lot, but I just remember where there'd be times where I might be in the lineup. I was hitting 6-hole, and then I didn't get a hit. And then the next day I'm not in the lineup, and I'm like, damn, your brain immediately goes, well, that I'm not in the lineup now because I didn't get a hit. And then now the next time you do get in the lineup, maybe you start out 0 for 2 for the game, and now you're like, oh, if I don't get a hit, coach isn't going to put me in. And so I think that at least this is my own personal opinion, just based on what I've seen. I feel as if that's a low hanging fruit for coaches, and just to be able to help their players kind of just keep the stress off of them, is just like you said, just always keeping them, even just over communicating on sometimes
Mhm.
why you're doing what you're doing, because from a player's standpoint, it's nerve wracking. It feels like all the time, whether you should feel that way or you shouldn't. And maybe I'm just nuts, and that was just me.
No, I wouldn't say you're nuts at all, right? Obviously, everybody wants to be in the lineup, and, if they don't I think baseball sometimes is too analytical, right? Like, we look at stats all the time, and it's like, oh, well, this guy's hitting 350, needs to be in the lineup, or this guy's hitting 125, and he probably shouldn't be in the lineup. I'd like to say that we are data supportive, not data driven.
Mm.
So, we look at the intangibles, and we started this program. It's been really cool with Coach Ben Carnes, works out of Westfield. Started a mental training plan program, and just working through that this year, like, seeing the results from when we started, and took the assessment, to now, going through the program with, what those are, and just having guys understand, like, again, baseball is a game of failure, and, it's not always, hey, you didn't perform today. So, you're not going to be in the lineup the next day. It's okay. Well, you didn't perform. Like, how do we get you back on the horse, right? How do we accept the failure? How do we deal with it? And how do we just simply move on? And it's obviously very much easier said than done, but how do we ultimately get back to neutral, right?
Mhm.
Like, we want to celebrate the big things. You just hit a three run home run, put us in the lead, and the next play, yeah, we want to celebrate that, and we want to be happy, but can't take that. Maybe we can take the highs of that, but then immediately, if we make an error, like, we can't have these emotional swings, right? Like, we can't be up and down all the time, and just find that, how do we get back to neutral? And that's ultimately what we try and preach.
Data supportive, not data driven. What are some other examples of what you mean by that?
All the intangibles, right? Like, okay, maybe your batting average is, below the Mendoza line, which is kind of an inside joke right now. None of my guys knew what the Mendoza line was a couple weeks ago, and I was like, oh man, I'm not that old. Am I dating myself right now? But maybe you're hitting below the Mendoza line, but you're a Gold Glove second baseman, right? Like, you are absolutely lighting it up defensively, and yeah, maybe you're not getting the hits, but hey, you're moving runners. When you get on base, you're stealing bags, or maybe you're hitting behind guys, and you're really good, situationally, but your average isn't showing it. So we just try and look at all those things. Like, we're big quality at bats people. We chart those all the time, and have different categories for that. So you may punch out, but it could be a quality at bat because you were 0-2 and worked it to 3-2 and saw 10 pitches in that at bat. Like, yeah, it resulted in a strikeout and it hurts your average, but it was a quality at bat because now we maybe we get to the bullpen because of that at bat. Yes, again, it resulted in a strikeout and was an out, but if we get to the bullpen, or we see an extra pitch. Now that the next guy comes up, maybe we saw a changeup that he hasn't used all day, and he had to use it against you to get that strikeout. Now we have no, it's in his arsenal. Like, we look at all those things. So I think that kind of feeds into our data supportive, not data driven.
Yeah, I think that's great because it's anytime you can get some small wins or take small wins or just find them anywhere. I think it's so huge. Obviously, in this game where there's just failure so many times. Going back to the mental performance stuff, like where do you feel like your players? You said you felt like you saw a big difference from when you guys implemented that to now. Where how do you feel like that's helped out your guys the most? And what do you is there anything specific that you guys did that you think really helped them transition into viewing the game differently or it's a different perspective or something like that?
I think we talk about it a lot. And again, like, how do we get back to neutral? And that was one of the biggest things. Or how do you respond in pressure situations? Or what do you need to get back to neutral? Like, okay, I just walked the bases loaded. There's 2 outs. We're up by a run in the ninth. Like, how do we just take a breath? How do we slow the game down? And how do we get back and ultimately go make a pitch? Or, same thing from the offensive side. Like, hey, we're down a run in the ninth inning, and you got a runner at second with 2 outs. Like, how do you not let the emotions of the game dictate your emotions?
Mm.
And just understanding, your body control, and what you need to, kind of ebb and flow, and how does your body feel, and how does that impact you mentally?
It's good stuff. And what I also love so much about the mental side is that's everything you just described. Those are skills you have for the rest of your life,
Mhm.
right? It's all, it really is all intertwined together. What's a typical game day like from a practice standpoint? Like, I think one of the things you always hear about is it challenging BP, easy BP? Like, do you guys set things up based upon the pitcher that you're going to be facing that day? Is it kind of it depends situation if it's conference play versus non-conference? Like, how do you go about setting up the practice plans for game days or maybe even leading up to game days too?
I think I like to be as consistent as possible on game days. So we have our routine that we found that we liked, that gets us where we need to go. So it's always the practices leading up to that. We can put an emphasis on, hey, this team's going to try and attack us this way, like, and set up our drill work based on that, right? Like, I don't want to talk too much about our conference opponents, but we have some conference opponents that ultimately try and get us to chase spin down, right? So maybe we'll do a two plate drill where the front one is going to be a breaking ball at the bottom of the zone that we need to identify and hit gap to gap, and then we'll move to the back plate, and it's looks the same, but all of a sudden it's out of the zone. So just trying to identify where the zone is, or hey, this guy's got a really good changeup and he's going to use it. Or, we try and inter squad as much as possible, just again to see more live arms and get more live at bats and things like that. But our picks and our bunt defenses, like, I think are pretty standard and pretty simple. Because I try not to overcomplicate anything. But, if we got a small ball team coming up, maybe we'll rep certain things a little differently that week as opposed to a team who's just gonna try and thump the ball, or a team who runs really well, or maybe they hit and run a lot, so we'll try and flip our coverages and we'll throw those into the practice plans.
Speaking of speed and running, when you're recruiting, is that something that of really importance for position players that you're looking for is speed?
Not necessarily. We might be the only team in the country, but I do not care about your 60.
Mm.
It's not a part of our program. We don't ever run a 60-yard dash. We'll time our 78, which is your standard 12-foot lead to second base. So we have an understanding of, okay, if you run you're a 3-4-3, now you can look at the base running chart in the dugout that, we compile, like, okay, the catcher's pop time's a 2-1, the pitcher's a 1-3 to the plate, and now they're combined is a 3-4. Like, if we're in a standard 12-foot lead, it's going to be a bang bang play. Do we get a good jump, or do all of a sudden is he a 1-2 to the plate and the catcher's a 2 flat, and now you're going to be out by two tenths of a second? Do we need to get into our 6-foot momentum lead and try and hit that timing window? So obviously speed is important. I'm not saying that it's not, but I look for the things of, like, how do you read things well? Do you pick up on tendency? Can we teach you to be a better base runner and teach you to hit those timing windows? So I don't necessarily look at speed when I'm recruiting. Look at the base running aspect, and do you get good reads on fly balls? Like, you don't have to run a 6.5 to be a good outfielder. You can run a 7.1, but you read the ball off the bat very well. You understand the spins. If you're playing a quarter side, like, that 7.1 could be a better outfielder than that 6.5 because he gets a better jump. So
100%, I agree with you there. Yeah, I mean, I've seen that firsthand several times where, and I think a lot of people don't really realize this too. Is a lot of the major league out, there's not many 30-year-old major league corner outfielders who are running 6.5s. As a matter of fact, I think there's zero.
right.
So I mean, they are running 7.1s. So I think that's interesting. And it's great that finally more people. Maybe you said maybe you're the only one, but it's great that more people you're at least talking about that 60 is a little bit overrated because it doesn't transition to the necessarily to the game. Now, when let's just say you guys have a camp, will you test the first to second stealing? Is that how you
Mhm.
would test?
Yep.
Love it.
Absolutely.
I
Yep.
love that. Yeah, a reason I like that too is because you'll hear the home to first time, and which is great in game. But the problem is, and I'm sure you probably already know where I'm going, is when you do that in a showcase setting, in a camp setting. I mean, I'd be doing the same thing. Is that swing is going to be a slap swing, right? That's not a real swing
Mhm.
because you're just trying to get out of the box as fast as you can to get to first base. So I like how you're doing it where you're kind of like, no, you have to start. This is the exact spot you're starting in, and then we're going to get your time to second. That's really, I think, from a quantitative standpoint, that's way more consistent.
Thank you for saying that. We also look at, so we'll, during our camps, we'll go 78s, and then we will also get a 10-yard split. So the first 30 feet.
Mm.
How quickly do you get to second base, and how quickly do you accelerate? Those are the two numbers that we look at predominantly.
I like that. And is that something that you just kind of came up with on your own? Was that something you saw from someone else? You learn? Like, how did you come up with? And obviously, there's other people who like people do that, but I don't know if I've necessarily heard anybody say like, no, this is just how we straight up track speed at camps. We don't waste our time with the 60 and all that other stuff.
I definitely did not come up with it on my own. Just again through your experiences and listening to different people and trying to put together what makes sense to you. I mean, there's different ways to go about things, and people value things differently. So just ultimately trying to learn and grow as much as possible, talk, have different conversations, watch some videos, and, talk to people who are way smarter than I am, and kind of compile all the data and be like, okay, this makes sense to me and this is what I value.
When you were assistant coach, or even maybe now, I feel like some people are pitching at people, some people are hitting people, some people like infield and base running, catching. Is there a certain part of a group of players or positions or whatnot that you kind of gravitate to, or you still work with, or maybe you feel like you're a strong suit?
I would say It's always been catchers. So I was a catcher
Mm.
myself, obviously the hitting side as well. But when I went to Franklin, I worked with the catchers and the outfielders. And then at D&E, I also worked with the catchers and the outfielders. At Tron, I worked with the catchers. And then last year here, I worked with the catchers. And then transitioning into the head coach role, we lost our outfield coach, and I hired a really, really good catching coach. I kind of, as much as it pained me to do, I kind of turned the catchers over to him and took the outfielders because we don't have that guy anymore. So we've got all our position groups covered. We've got our catching guy, we've got our infield guy. Took control of the outfield guy, and then obviously our pitching guy.
Can you give us some insight on outfield play? Because I feel like this is something you see drills online for infielders, for catchers, pitching stuff everywhere, even corner infield positions. But I feel like the outfield guys, we kind of get left behind sometimes on what's improved, right? It's like, oh, you got to get better in the outfield. I was like, okay, well, what do you do? What's kind of your thoughts? Like when you're working with outfielders, what type of thing, what are you emphasizing to them? What are you looking for? I feel like this could be just beneficial for everyone who's an outfielder.
We kind of try and emphasize, the 2-2-2. So we want to be, 2 steps behind, 2 steps through, and then 2 steps, with your follow through. Right? So we always talk about seeing the top of the baseball. If you see the top of the baseball, that means you're behind it. If you don't, that means it's probably over your head. So we try and see the top of the baseball and just work to be in a position to be 2 steps behind it. And that way we can work 2 steps through it. And then 2 steps, your pro step or your crow hop or however you go about that. You got your 2 steps to your throw, right? So 2 behind, 2 through, 2 to your throw. And then honestly, yeah, we can do all the drill work, right? Like big one that I really like is just setting up a machine that's gonna drop a ball into the middle of a cone circle. And then we just, whether it's 10 yards or 15 yards, depending on the height of the baseball or where the sun is and things like that, we just work all of our footwork around that, and work on our hip movement and things like that. But ultimately, BP is the biggest piece for me when working with outfielders. Like when we set up our BP, we don't have any screens in the middle of the field. We do a lot of what we call competitive outs BP. So you got to get 18 outs within the group and 2 double plays. So I know I'm transitioning into the infield now, but just ultimately BP is so important because that's almost the only time you ever get live reads, right? Like you can stand at the plate and hit fungos, or you can set up a machine and things like that. But ultimately, it's just understanding how do we set up a machine to get the ball to move this way, like it's fading or it's slicing or it's drawing, using some golf terms there. But just getting into live BPs and being super competitive and intentional with our BP practices.
Do you prefer to have your outfielders play a little bit more shallow because it's harder to gauge as an outfielder whether it's more in front of you versus if it's over your head, it's kind of an easier read?
I think it depends on situational hitter at the plate and wind conditions. So I don't know if I can really give you a good answer there. I'm really fortunate to have an incredible outfield right now. So I kind of let them like, hey, here's the scouting report. Here's what we're looking for. Here's how the wind's blowing today. Here's where the sun is. Like you guys communicate with yourselves and do what you think is best, right? Like maybe I'll get a hunch and I'll move some guys not according to the scouting report and it could burn us sometimes or it could work out really well. But I'll take the blame there if that ever happens. But I really only ever get into the situation of telling them like, hey, we're in a no doubles defense right here. Everything else, like, hey, let's get some good reads and go get it.
You guys ever practice robbing home runs?
Our guys do.
Love it.
It hasn't happened yet, but those guys enjoy it. We try and keep it light and fun. And I think you got to practice every situation as much as possible, from your diving plays to your sliding plays to robbing your own runs to the balls that are off the fence and things like that. So I mean, we don't do it every day, but there's some times that it's even fun with the football, right? Get them back out there and throw some passes and get them up to the fence and try and one hand that football over the fence and bring it back.
That's great. So Tyler, when you're recruiting out watching guys, or maybe when they're coming to your camp and they're an outfielder, what is it? Are you looking? Is it more like, hey, we're going to take this guy if it's the bat, right? Because it may be hard for just a couple throws or just a couple balls right at him or a couple fly balls to really gauge necessarily how good they are. Or are you taking a middle infielder and then putting him in the outfield once he gets to Anderson?
I would say maybe a little bit of both. Um, definitely looking for athletes that swing it well and have good barrel control, and their path works well through the zone, and I think guys are who are on the barrel are, and those who aren't. Um, so just ultimately with the outfielders, we're just looking for good athletes that have a good understanding of the game, and I think we can always help them with reads and things like that. Are you a good athlete, and can you get good jumps and track down fly balls and communicate well?
Good stuff. When it comes to going back to the recruiting process again, what are some of the things you don't want to hear from a potential recruit?
That's a good question. I like when guys do their homework. Like, I don't want to hear, "Do you have my major?" Like,
Mm.
you can go on our website is really good about, "Hey, these are all the majors that we have." Like, and then ultimately, I don't ever want somebody to shut us down without being here. And I know it happens, but I just give us a chance, right? Anderson is not for everybody, and I'll be the first person to tell you that. And if you get on campus and you don't like the feel, you don't like the faith aspect, you don't like me, like that's fine. But at least, be open to the conversation.
Good advice right there, because the reality too, and this is what I tell kids is you don't know, right? You've never been through this process before. You've never been to college before. You've never played for a college coach before. So you don't actually know where the right place is going to be for you until you actually
Mhm.
go and visit, like you said, or meet the coach in person, not just texting or anything like that. And that's the only way that you really are going to know if it's going to be a right fit or not for you.
Yeah. And I try and tell guys that we have on campus all the time. If we're their first visit, I tell them all the time, like, obviously we want you here and you might want to be here after this visit. And I love that, but I want you to go somewhere else because they might say something that maybe I didn't cover. And now you can come back and be like, "Hey, this is what so and so said. Like, what do you guys do for this?" Just get another feel for a different campus because every place is different, and you don't know what you don't know. So if we're your only visit and you want to commit, like, I'm probably not going to say no. Like, we had you on campus for a
Yeah.
reason. But at the end of the day, like, just go get something to compare it to.
And what are some of the really good questions or maybe one really good question that maybe someone has brought back to you after they went to go visit somebody else?
Probably the biggest one was like development program. I think we try and do a really good job of covering that and speaking to it because we want to bring you in and ultimately help you be the best version of yourself on and off the field. But maybe I didn't do a good job that day of laying out what our development plan looked like and what our strength and conditioning plan looked like and how we navigate in season versus off season and things like that. So I had a recruit that went on a visit and they gave them, like, they printed out what their in-season workout program was, their off-season workout program, their small hitting group day by day, stuff like that. And I guess I didn't get as detailed as they did, so they just came back and were like, "Hey, like, this is what they showed me. This is what they're doing. What could I see a detailed version? I know you talked about it, but could you get more detailed for me?" And that was awesome for me.
So did you immediately go and work on building one out?
Well, we have it all built out. I just
Oh, you just forgot to give it to them.
Well, yeah, we just didn't give it to them. Like, we talked about it, and I just didn't share it with them, like, so they can see it visually. But I sent them practice plans and sent them our small group hitting plans and what our strength and conditioning program looked like. I gave them my login to our Train Heroic and was like, "Hey, you can go look at all of our plans throughout the course of the week, throughout the course of the year. Like, here's our throwing program that Jaeger over at Jaeger Bands helped us, kind of put together." Like, just gave him everything, and he was like, "All right, cool. This is awesome."
Alan is the man, by the way. It's great that he oversaw the throwing program. I think that might be beneficial maybe for people to hear just maybe a little bit of glimpse. You talk about the development plans right there, but like how when you say it's in depth or maybe the other place was in depth, and what are kids looking for? What, like, if I came to play for you or went on a recruiting visit to you, like what are some of the things that, like, oh, this is how detail oriented we are?
I think our practice plans are. If I can find one. I don't know if this is a pretty good description of it. It might be backwards.
Love it. No,
I
no,
can
no. I can see it. That's perfect.
we just,
I
you,
like it.
you got your notes, where you need to be, what the schedule looks like, your weekly schedule, and then the breakdown of the day. We put a 12-week program together in the off season. That's, hey, here's day one, here's, week one, day one, here's week four, day four, and just try and be like as detail oriented as possible. Our strength and conditioning programs the same way, our throwing programs the same way. we put together, a player manual that is probably less like, hey, don't do this, don't do that, but more like, here's our signs, here's our throwing program, here's our calendar for the year breakdown, and ultimately what we're looking for. So we probably over communicate a little bit. Like, you can go into our locker room right now, and on our board in there, we put the scouting report for the week, we put our practice plan for the day, all of our signs are posted in there, our BP times are posted in there, our Bible verse of the week is posted in there. Like, everything you could possibly ever need reference to, like, it's easily accessible.
You have no excuse not to know.
Right.
That's great, dude. I love how attention or detail oriented, I would say, it sounds like you guys are. And hopefully the players don't take it for granted, because obviously it's not like that everywhere. Kind of wrapping this thing up, anything else people should need to know about Anderson University, your baseball program? Like, what are some of any thoughts just to kind of leave us with?
I don't know. Pretty open book. I think we've been very competitive over the course of our history here, into the World Series twice under Coach Don Brandon, who our field is named after. We've had some guys get drafted. So I think the biggest thing for me is D3 baseball. And I think maybe I'm speculating a little bit, but I think D3 sometimes gets overlooked because it's Division 3. But we high level players that go on and play professionally, and D3 teams do that across the country, right? We played Mount Union early in the year, and we saw Ty Dennison, who I don't know where he is statistically right now, but he was like leading the country in strikeouts, and he was 92 to 94 all day against us. And you can put a mustard seed up there and he was probably going to hit it. Like, he was so good. When I was at Franklin, went to the regional in 2019, and we got no hit by Concordia, Chicago. The kid that no hit us was drafted out of high school in like the 25th round and didn't take the money. And because there wasn't a lot of money at that time, for him, but ended up at Concordia and was thrown in a D3 regional against us, and he was really, really good. So, I just think at the end of the day, like, the fit is what's important, and the relationships are what drive me and what drive this program. Like, our guys love each other. I love them. At the end of the day, it's, love God, love people, and love AU baseball. And, I think that we can be competitive and get really good players in here. And any advice I would have is take the conversation.
Love it. That's good stuff. Yeah, I just to piggyback on what you said right there, because I think it's just really important for people to know, and what I try to do to help educate is the recruiting doesn't go, yes, like the best baseball, I could say what you would say is Power 4, SEC, Power 4 levels are, yeah, probably the best, and then mid-major D1. But once you start going D2, it's not in order of competition, right? It's not
Right.
like D2 is just better than D3, and then D3 is better than NA. That's not how it works at all. Like, there's tons of D3 teams that are better than tons of D2 teams. Like,
Mhm.
it's not how it works. So I think I'm glad you brought that up, because just because you're D3 doesn't mean that you're less than D2 from a competition or athletic standpoint. That's just not how it works at all. It's just, you said there's higher academics, I would say, overall at the Division 3 level. Anyway, man, I really appreciate, Tyler, you coming on today. Looking forward to following you guys. And man, it's a lot of fun. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Awesome.